like to mention that the presenter is my sister. I'm happy that she's here today, and I'm hopeful that we'll have very fruitful deliberations. With those few remarks, can I now hand over to the chair so that we can proceed as planned? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuchwayo, for those kind words.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuchwayo. Hello. Thank you very much, Doctor. So I've started recording in case after the meeting some may not be able to attend this, so they will try and post it on the ZPBA platforms. Now I would like to hand over to a representative from AGRA.
Sorry, all our AGRA colleagues are in West Africa, traveling with the board chair, so a lot of our bosses are away.
Okay. So in that case, then I'll just introduce Dr. Rufaro Madakadze. Dr. Rufaro Madakadze, I think most on the call have interacted one way or the other with her. Like I said before, I mean, I was once one of the students. So we would want to congratulate you for feeding back to the community that you were once working with, I think some 5-10 years ago, I'm not sure now. So she was with the University of Zimbabwe as a lecturer in the horticulture department. She is now with the AGRA. Initially, she was working on training, capacity building for African students. So many students went through the programs she was coordinating. I think now she's now looking at seed systems. So we felt as the ZPBA that she is the best person to link breeding work with seed systems. So let me hand over to Dr. Madakadze. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I am so excited. I was so excited to see Dumi. We grew up together, I think in primary school. So it's great to see everyone, and I can recognize a lot of the names here. So I am excited to be here. I want to acknowledge the presence of the ministry representative, who I have already called by his name in the name of Dr. Dumi Kuchwayo, and the ZPBA leadership, and to thank you for giving me this opportunity to actually share with you what I have learned in the last few years in the work I've been doing in AGRA. I'm going to share my presentation. Can you see something from me?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, I'm going to put it in presentation mode, sorry. It's interesting when you are talking to some of your former students, you always assume you are okay, but now when you are talking to now your former students, when they are scientists, it becomes a bit nerve-wracking. But today I'm going to be sharing with you on the topic that has already been talked about. Most of you know I worked for the University of Zimbabwe, left Zimbabwe and went to South Africa when things were tough. Worked in the University of Zululand for about 3 years, then joined AGRA, where I've been for the last 13, 14 years. So the work I will be sharing, it has a lot of AGRA examples, just because that's where I've been in the last few years. If anything is not working, please, you are very welcome to jump in and say, please stop, there's something not working. Okay, thanks. So now I don't see my. Okay. So we are going to be talking, I will talk a little bit about AGRA, tell you a little bit about AGRA for those who do not know it. I will talk a little bit about the seed system components and where and how plant breeding impacts the seed system components and what we need to do to ensure that the seed systems continue to work. Then I will end on last mile delivery of improved seeds to farmers to ensure food security and improved incomes. AGRA, can you still hear me? Just checking.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
We can
AGRA
hear
is
you.
an African-led alliance that focuses on food security and a prosperous future for all Africans. We work on innovations that increase productivity and access to markets to improve the livelihoods of smallholder farmers. Our work puts the smallholder farmer at the center of the economy, and we thrive at working at changing the smallholder farmer life from solitary struggle to thriving business. Our headline goals are doubling the incomes of 9 million farm households in Africa, directly and indirectly 21 million through the partnerships that we make with various organizations, including governments. We are working at supporting a pathway to attain and sustain an agricultural transformation through sustainable agricultural productivity and access to markets and finance for our chief customer, the smallholder farmers. We have three main bodies of work that we are focusing on in the last strategy we started in 2017, ending in 2021. These bodies of work include policy and state capacity, where we focus on investments that are working with public sector governments, improving execution capacity, transparency, accountability of systems and the policy environment. Then we on systems development, where we are building downstream delivery systems that deliver productivity and incomes to smallholder farmers. And and on country delivery and partnerships, where we are aligning the government priority and private sector interests and improving integration and coordination along these lines. So that's basically what AGRA does. Oh, I've gone down. So our main focus is agriculture transformation. And as we know, agriculture transformation starts with the seed. It is fueled by good fertilizers. And when I talk of good fertilizers, I'm talking about blended fertilizers that just provide the right inputs. It's sustained by structured markets. And for that to work, we need skilled researchers that generate and disseminate technologies to farmers. And the technologies get to farmers through last mile delivery, which in AGRA we refer to as agro dealers, extension agents, and community-based advisors. So going back to the seed systems, I've copied here the TASAI African Seed Access Index seed cycle, where they talked about four main components, which is research and variety development, which is mainly done by the public sector in most of Africa, except I think South Africa, Zimbabwe, and maybe one or two other North African countries that also have private sector that does research and development, and we have parastatals that does research and variety development. Then we have variety registration and release, which is mainly government, seed production, processing and packaging, mainly private sector, and seed marketing, sales and trade, which is seed companies and agro dealers and the last mile I was talking about. So these are very critical components for a seed system to function. Each and every one of them must be working smoothly, must be working flawlessly, and must be linked to the other for there to be an effective seed system. So breeding is the backbone of this complex seed supply in Africa. Why is it the backbone. It generates the seeds that moves in the seed system, but it's complex because we have diverse agroecologies in Africa. You know, in Asia, they could do multiple rice varieties and a large population will be okay. But in Africa, we have a lot of different agroecologies. So we need breeding that generates broadly and specifically adapted varieties. We need breeders that need to understand the market so that they develop products for that. This is mainly because we have a diverse food base. We have the yams, the cassava, the bananas, the maize, the rice, so many food systems that we have. And we are mainly rain-fed systems, not to talk about the political landscape and the underinvestment in agriculture. So this diversity and uncertain conditions represent major implications that affect crop productivity, crop yields, and food systems in Africa. So where and how does the breeding fit into the functional seed system? It's the centerpiece of the seed system. As I said, it generates the technology for seed systems to move. And it's one of the key components that is critical in closing the huge yield gaps in Africa. I picked this from some of the data, this table from some of the data we've been putting together for our evaluation is AGRA. In 2017, these were the yields that were available for maize, soybean in Mozambique, maize and beans in Tanzania, Nigeria, you see. And these are the potential yields. So you see almost all the crops, the yields that the farmers were getting in 2017 were like a quarter or less of the potential yields. We've worked a lot in agri to improve the extension, improve access to seeds, access to fertilizer, access to markets. So the yields have increased, in some cases doubled, but it's still way below the potential. So there are still challenges to be addressed. There's lack of improved varieties available to grow. There's low variety replacement. There are some varieties that have been there for 10, 20 years that farmers are still banking on, that have now they lost resistance to diseases, climate change factors that Dr. Dumi talked about, that are all need to be replaced, and we have low awareness of available varieties. So breeders must keep an eye on genetic gains in the breeding programs. They must utilize all the available tools that are necessary to improve the genetic gains of the material they work with. And we must move with the systems and implement the global breeding system management systems. So what is an excellent breeder? An excellent breeder works with farmers to unblock the lack of adoption, to identify critical traits that the farmers need. And when we are talking of identifying critical traits, we are actually talking at farmers. You need to talk to both the females and the males. The differences are absolutely amazing, because the people of breeders who have now been talking to females in like bean production, now we have fast cooking beans. So there are so many different traits that the farmers need, but if we don't talk to them, we don't know. And we must incorporate the key market traits. This is important, especially for crops like the soybeans, that have oil, fats, or something that is needed in the markets. So a good breeder works with various partners to co-create, to license, and to share germplasm, among other things. This, I believe, I'm preaching to the choir. And we must also, as the breeders, must also work with the industry to align the products to the markets and to the production. And they must work with both the private and public sector extension system to improve the product awareness. If you are a breeder that focuses on all those, then you become an excellent breeder. The products that you develop are what the market requires. Going a little bit deeper on this, just looking at the process and how to improve operational excellence in the process. The breeding work starts with the people. The people are so important. That's what I spent about my first 10 years in Agra working on. Actually, more than 10 years in Agra working on. Funding programs that train plant breeders, that train research technicians, who intend to train their support staff, so capacity building is critical. Then we talk about product design. I think now everyone is almost talking about the demand-led, you must focus what product are you developing. For a long time, breeding was just research to develop a variety, but without a focus on what exactly do you want to develop, what exactly does the market want. So in the product design, we need the PRAs, we need the demand-led variety development techniques, we need to be customer focused. And in Agra, our chief customer is the farmer. And we need to develop product profiles so that as you start the breeding program, you are targeting right what you need. And the process, of course, you need a diverse and rich germplasm base. You need to work with all kinds of breeding methodologies. You need to have partnerships. Collaboration is important. And product development. And then there's this part that is almost always missing. That is between the breeding and the production, which is product development, which is an integration of the breeding system and seed production, where you have variety release and commercialization. I've actually seen a lot of good varieties, beautiful varieties bred that are not in the market. And the main reason they are not in the market is they are very difficult to produce for a seed company. If you have to plant a male variety this date, then wait for 5 days to plant a female variety or whatever, vice versa, that always creates havoc for seed producers. So even as you develop your varieties, you need to also pay attention to that development aspect that links the variety you produce and its production. And in production, I'm just going to talk about what is the role of the breeder here. Provision of good quality breeder seed is critical. As a breeder, your variety is like your baby. You must always be technically backstopping quality. You must support the seed companies that work with your products in the demos for better improvement and also for getting feedback from them. And these days, there are all these kinds of low density genetic markers that you can use to just continuously check the genetic purity of your material. And post-release, you must invest in regular monitoring of your varieties. Look at product penetration. This variety that you have generated, where is it grown? What is the feedback from where it is grown? Is it showing breakdown in resistance? Is it still producing well? What else do I need to continue to improve? So these are things that a good breeder must always do. You must always be checking yourself, testing yourself. Is this it? What are the farmers saying? What is the market saying? Where can I improve this variety? Of course, this is more difficult in the public sector, but I think it's worth investing. Otherwise, you breed something. We've had some breeders who have generated 1 or 2 good varieties, and that's it for life. That's not how it works. We are now talking of breeding pipelines so that you are continuously working. So in 2006, before we started this Agra program, there were less than 500 breeders in about 13 countries, and not all of them were even active. So we started funding. Funding breeding, training of breeders, but even now I cannot tell you whether we have changed that much. Of course, when I'm talking to some people, I say we had 500 in the beginning, we have funded 500 and 1 more crop improvement specialist, so we have doubled. basically, seriously, that's not true. We have not doubled because we've had staff we've had retirements, we have had staff mobility, and a lot of them have actually gone into management. So we don't have those people. So as a result, so what ADGRA is doing in solving some of the capacity, or is done in solving some of the capacity gaps, is to establish an Education for Africa Crop Improvement sub-program, which I managed, which was part of the program for Africa Seed System. Our focus was training scientists, seed system practitioners, plant breeders, and other disciplines. We increased the number of relevant scientists working in Africa, working on African crops, addressing problems of smallholder farmers. We built institutional capacity to conduct postgraduate training and other types of training. When we started actually looking at the universities that were there was, I think, only the ACCI which had a dedicated postgraduate program in plant breeding. And this has actually moved to over 15 programs now. We had a budget of about $46 million in 12 years. And those were our objectives: provide funding for training of PhD plant breeders in Africa, focusing mainly on priority staple crops. And because I'm a horticultural crops, we put in the sweet potatoes, the beans, and things in there just to make the things interesting. We provided MSc fellowships in strengthened curricula. We built capacity of breeding programs through training of plant breeding technicians and funding mid-career plant breeder training. And we also build the capacity of the seed industry through short-term training of the personnel in all aspects of seed business. We worked initially in 13 countries. This increased to about 18 at some stage. But as AGRA, in the current strategy, we went back to about 11 core countries. So the PhD student training was fairly simple: 1 to 2 years of coursework, where they developed the thesis. They did a mini project to learn some of the practical breeding concepts before they went home. All PhD students actually did a PRA. We called it a PRA, but it also included for some crops, checking what the industry requirements were. But all the plant breeding projects were done attached to research institutions in their home countries. And after completion, the students had an option to actually apply for a research grant from AGRA to continue with that breeding program they started in university to variety release. And over 70% of the scientists actually did this. The good thing about bringing these people from different countries actually developed a platform for networking. This is from the West Africa Center. You can see Maxwell Asante and Edgar Valentine Traore are now best buddies. They work together, they share germplasm. Mori Koulibaly and Allen Opong, they share germplasm, they work together. So there's a platform already established for working together. And in 2013, we realized our focus had been mainly funding the training of breeders in NAS. But AGRA had these SME seed companies that were growing that needed people. So we were given a grant by BMGF to work on a program called Improved MSc in Cultivar Development. We worked with Iowa State University on curricular development to train about 90 MSc level scientists. We funded development of curricula of cultivar development programs at the universities. And we funded the establishment of MSc student internship programs in private and seed companies. The few different things that were there, actually not different. This work really augmented the training in classical breeding. with a focus on data management, logistics, mechanization, business. So it was bringing the product development aspects into the breeding programs. We enhanced planning and problem-solving skills. It increased exposure to modern cultivar development through working in internships. It prepared a cohort of almost like industry-ready breeders who hit the ground running. And we, of course, I talked about the curriculum, and we had a committee that worked with us. Because this grant had quite a bit of money, it was very easy to expose the students to the private sector, to show them the different ways breeding works. So this is just from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. This is from Dr. Julia Sibia, one of our own. They were able to take their students to Pana, to see soybean breeding, to Proceeds, to Incotech, to see genotyping services. So this was happening like in 3 universities: University of KwaZulu-Natal, Makerere University, and Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. And a lot of the students were excited by what they learned, because initially they would just do the research 1 year, that's it, go home. But we realized some of them are going home and starting breeding programs without an idea of how that works really. So these are some of the comments from Wilson Carter. He said he thought the things would just work one after another, but it is not like that. The activities are performed concurrently, so he needed to learn to prioritize, to see how the things work. So that was one of the things. From Awadi from Tanzania, he said he learned managing and organizing people. He learned designing and managing trials practically, and teamwork. And from Wheeler, from Zambia, she learned SNP line genotyping equipment, characterization of introductions, database management, use of near-infrared technology, all those methods used in plant breeding. So they were actually not only learning about the thesis research they were doing, they also learned the home breeding management program that they were in. So basically from this work, over 200 varieties of a wide range of crops were released by the ex-students or scientists. This changed the face of plant breeding research in NAS, over 300 publications in refereed journals, and we now have postgraduate students training others, starting seed companies. And the strategy that we used of actually making the scientists to go home and do the research in their facilities improved the retention of staff in their home countries, and also improved the facilities at their research centers. As I said before, we also worked at training mid-career plant breeding. We partially funded the African Plant Breeding Academy based at the University of California, Davis, which was running courses at ICRAF. This was a continuing education program for PhD and master's level plant breeders. It's almost like the ACAs of accounts, the CPAs of accounts. I don't know in engineering what they have. The courses were developed from material and personnel who teach private sector plant breeders in the US. And so it's very focused. The results improved plant breeding efficiency in the public sector, and they were taught product development, modern plant breeding methodologies. There are a lot of the PhD students who went there, came out of there thinking, wow, I thought I had arrived at the learning of these breeding things, but it showed the need for continuous learning. Then, of course, we trained the research technicians. This was done at Namlonge in Uganda and IITA and ICRISAT in West Africa. The technicians were actually taken from some of the breeding programs that AGRA funded. And this, we realized, is critical as the technicians collect most of the data that breeders use to make decisions. It taught the technicians the theory and practical exercises of plant breeding, basically why they do some things and the best methods to do this. One of the technicians in Uganda, after learning how to collect data, to analyze it and interpret it, said it's almost like magic. We never knew this is what the data was used for. So, and they are also taught ethics and integrity, which improves the efficiency of data collection. So this has really worked, and we are under pressure now because a lot of the technicians are saying, please, we need this training some more. And as I said before, we also worked with building the capacity of seed company personnel, based at the University of Nairobi and in Senegal at the University of Thess, and also recently at the University of Rwanda. This is basically working with seed company personnel on seed production, on seed business, seed marketing, on even what are the legislation requirements for certification requirements, all those things that are needed. And this has really worked because some of the companies have actually grown and they've adopted some of the things they've learned, and they are now running more professional companies. One of the things that we kind of miss a lot is the legislation and regulation bits of things. I was always surprised when we were talking to plant breeders that a lot of the times in school, if you ask them, how do you register a variety? How do you release a variety in your country? They didn't know. But those are some of the things that they actually need to know even before you start. Anyway, so what were some of the key success factors from the work we've done? Partnership is key, starting from the identification of institutions, even to selection of program managers, the ensured relevance, working with NAS and CGs actually exposed some of the academic staff to proper breeding. And now in a lot of the institutions we worked with, we now have the investees and NAS working together. The soft skills and people skills were important. Student internships, I've already said. The full funding of the programs and students was important. This is something I am still making noise about in Agra. We said, okay, we funded this, they are generating varieties, but the varieties are not reaching the farmers, so let's go a little lower. But even now, we are still seeing there is still a need. One of the things that worked was the hectic monitoring at all stages, from coursework to research activities. This enabled quick identification of problems, increased university programs monitoring. One of the examples which I always laugh at, we went to one of the universities. The professors never followed up the students. So when we said we are going to follow up every student in the field, they were like, oh. One of them said, no, we can't go. This place is 8 hours away. I said, no problem. We went, and what we saw was so sad. So actually from that, when they started realizing Agra pushes and follows, they now started following their students and improved the supervision. So these are some of the things that has worked. This is just about the partnerships. We were funded by BMGF, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Swedish Ministry of Aid, and we worked with universities, CG centers, and these are our other partners and what they did. For international universities, we worked with Cornell University and Iowa State University, the NAS from all over Africa. And this is what they did. I'm getting worried about the time. How much time do I still have? 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can. 5 minutes.
Okay, so that's what I've talked about is what I was doing. So the last few years, we started going back to scaling things so that they reach farmers. So the current strategy, we are building the capacity of agriculture value chain actors and their institutions to bring improved technologies to smallholder farmers. This includes a few scientists, extension workers, input and output market personnel, farmer groups. So we are still building individual and institutional capacity, and it's all working towards getting to our goals of increased adoption, increased productivity of farmers. So I'm now talking about the last mile delivery. So the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working mainly on extension and SME capacity building. And I realized initially I was a bit disappointed because I'm still an academic at heart. I wanted the university thing, the cutthroat science. But when you realize that the breeding, the work of breeding, if it does not get to the farmer, then we really haven't done anything. There's no impact. So the job of breeding is only done when the farmers are growing your variety and are happy with the variety they are growing. So we have an agri-extension strategy, which is private sector led, working with community-based advisors or village-based advisors. These are self-employed agents. They rapidly create demand for yield-enhancing inputs. They teach farmers good agricultural practices using mother and baby demos. They aggregate produce and link farmers to markets. What we have actually done is to go to the private sector, to the seed companies and to the fertilizer companies and said, we want to actually help you market your produce to farmers. So give us some of your produce in small packs that we can give to farmers to demonstrate. And a lot of the private sector has done that, and they've increased their businesses by 40–50% in West Africa. So we have partnered with private seed companies. But the CBAs, as I said, are farmers. They are trained mainly by public sector extension agents and private sector companies. The training is very practical. It's actually interesting when you have taught in a university and now you are teaching extension people to teach farmers. It's an interesting scenario. You move from your high science to saying, how do I interpret this science to make sure the farmer understands that this is important. If they adopt this, they will increase their yields, they will make more money. If we go back to the Zimbabwe example, the CBAs are almost like master farmers, but with an expanded services of input marketing and input marketing and output market access provision. These are some of the few results we've seen from the work we've done in this new strategy. I took 2 examples of cowpea in Burkina Faso. Before we went into some of the communities, all the farmers were growing local varieties. But when we actually had the CBAs working with the farmers demonstrating new varieties, we actually have more than 80% of the farmers adopting the new varieties, and you can see the yield increases. We classified the farmers into best, moderate, and struggling, which is not a very good thing, but there were some increases in yields. And if we look at maize in Mozambique is a bit interesting. A lot of the farmers were using local varieties and a few OPVs, but with working with the community-based advisors, improving seed access to the farmers, improving fertilizer access, you actually see that they've improved. The farmers who are using hybrids have increased with time, and if we now have fewer farmers who are using local varieties. But the issue of fertilizer is still an issue in Mozambique. If you look, these are the best farmers using fertilizers at planting, it's 80 kilograms per hectare, which is really low. And so if you have a farmer using 20 kilograms per hectare, it's really almost like no fertilizer. But you see the changes in yield. So when we started seeing some of these results, it starts getting exciting that we are getting an impact. What do I want you to take home? Of course, I work for AGRA. We have invested in great institutions, and we have made a huge impact on breeding and seed system capacity and knowledge production. And of course, when we started in the program for Africa Seed Systems, we worked with Joe DeVries, who is this guy is a visionary. He had a vision that if we have to work at seed systems, you have to start from the people to the breeding operations to the seed companies production to even the distribution network to the farmers. So the successful breeding programs are centerpieces and they're important throughout that whole seed value chain. And breeders solve critical problems along the whole seed value chain. So please do not stay in your research stations, in your universities and say, I am breeding, and not work with the seed companies and not work with the farmers and not work with the legislators. It's important that you add value to all these stages. And what we need to do is to target the farmers and the industry and to keep up with the science. The good thing these days is keeping up with the science doesn't mean you have to know all the molecular breeding, all those science. We can outsource these things. So let's keep up with the science. Collaboration with other scientists, both in public and private sector, is important, it's critical. You actually cannot be an effective breeder if you are a lone ranger. It's not possible. And it's important to work the last mile delivery of improved seeds to farmers to ensure food security and improved incomes. And also for yourself as a scientist to get the feedback of what else needs to be improved. I think that is the last thing. Thank you very much. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you so much, Prof. Madakadze. So I'm now inviting Dr. Chiwaza to take us through the discussion session. We have got about 10 minutes or so before we conclude this discussion. So Dr. Chiwaza is now based in Nairobi. Over to you, Dr. Chiwaza.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Madakadze, for a very, very exciting presentation through the journey and up to the last mile, which is the farmers. Just a quick highlights from Dr. Madakadze's presentation, what I've picked. It was very, very informative, but I just picked a few among the main that agricultural transformation starts with the seed. And there are 4 pillars, which are R&D, variety registration and release, seed production and seed marketing. However, we are working in a complex environment with fragmented and heterogeneous farmers, which implies that we need different strategies if we want to have our products or our products of breeding to the end user, who is the farmer. So, however, she also highlighted that there is still some challenges. Despite the impressive performance and achievements made by AGRA and other partners, we still lack improved varieties at farmers level. Although maybe at a breeding and development stage, we have a lot of variety in the shelf. There is also low varietal turnover. Farmers are still using old varieties and low awareness of new varieties. We have also been given a very good definition of an excellent breeder, that he or she should be a very good listener. And not only a good listener, but we need to listen to the right farmers or clients. And these are female farmers. I think I agree with the 100%. They having grown up in the rural areas, most of the farmers in most East African countries are our mothers, because sometimes our fathers are out there looking for employment and the like. So we need to listen to the right farmers so that we come up with the right products. Also strengthening the linkages between breeding and the production so that the products which goes to the farmer are producible at the seed company level and also becomes cheaper when they go to the farmer. So those are some of the highlights I've picked. I know you guys, you get a lot, and I don't want to dilute Dr. Madakadze's presentation. Maybe, Dean, do you allow me to take questions, or it's you who take questions?
You should take questions, but there are some that are already on the chat boxes, I think. So you can start with the chats, then we can go to.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. From the chat box, I have one from Opio Paul, who said, at times the breeding institutions are overwhelmed with outreach work. What is government doing to support them with promotion of these improved variety, especially human resource extensionists? I don't know whether this is directed to Dr. Madakadze, but maybe, Doctor, you can try to answer that one.
I think Dr. Drumi is here. He's from government. He could help. What we have done as AGRA is to, because we have realized the extension systems are not working so well, so we are actually working to build the capacity of community-based advisors who work with extension systems, and these demonstrate the technologies at farmer level. But what we want is they must demonstrate technologies that are already commercialized, that if the farmer now says, oh, the groundnut stick you brought to us, we must know where to buy it. So that's what we are doing at AGRA level. I will give you an example. In 2 states we work in Nigeria, there are about 4,900 extension workers, but we have actually trained a lot more community-based advisors who work with the farmers, and the farmers are actually accessing a bit more extension than they did before that. We have now trained over 33,000 community-based advisors in 6 countries. It looks like a lot, but it's not.
Okay,
so the government still needs to do something.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madakadze. I will give this opportunity to Dr. Kuchwayo to also give his insights, if any. Dr. Kuchwayo?
Yes, hello, how are you? I think
I'm okay, how are you saying?
I'm okay, thank you. I think promotion of technologies, it's a multi-pronged. I think in Zimbabwe, we've got the private sector, we've got the public sector. And obviously the private seed companies, they do their own extension. And this is complemented by the public sector extension, which also does promote those technologies through various means, innovation platforms, farmer field schools, etc. But the efficacy of these technologies, I think, is something that needs to be evaluated, to going forward. That's all I can say for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kuchwayo. From the chat, Dean, I can't see any other question. Maybe I might have missed some. But maybe I'll open the floor to those who have questions. They can raise their hand so that I shout their name, then they can ask. Professor Tongona.
Yes, thank you very much and Dr. Madakadze for this very informative talk. And I'm excited to participate in this because, and thanking the Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association, because I think it's one of the very few associations which work by volunteers, and it's wonderful. So thank you for that. So coming to the issues that Dr. Madakadze elaborately went through, which was very great. The issues of capacity building. It is a huge challenge, and you alluded to it where you talked about people retiring, moving to other places, and so on and so on. So, but I'm also aware that AGRA sort of like now de-emphasizes the capacity building aspect. And I was wondering what the future looks like, because I believe that capacity building is a continuous process. You want to continually replace those who come out of the system as people grow old and so on. New blood must come in. And I mean, examples of universities that have been there for ages, they continue to train. So it means this is a continuous process. And I was just wondering on what the future looks like in terms of AGRA.
Yes, we actually kind of dropped the ball a little bit. I don't know whether I can call it dropped the ball, but as AGRA, our focus is the farmer. So we had trained a supposedly critical mass of breeders that are in the field, but we were still not seeing some of the results at farmer levels. That's why we scaled down. But now we are still exploring funding for postgraduate training, not necessarily only in breeding, but maybe in crop protection, in agronomy, in the other disciplines that support crop improvement. So it's not done yet. We are developing a strategy for 2021 to 2030, where we are looking at how do we address some of these things, because the impacts we've had in capacity building are huge and they cannot be questioned seriously. So even our donors are saying, you used to do this, why have you dropped it? So we are continuing. I think it's something that will continue. But I am also happy that there are some organizations that are continuing to fund capacity building. So it's not done yet. So thank you. I hope that helps. I know we used to put a lot of money, but who knows, we may get it back.
Thank you. I'm okay with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul? Paul, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, Paul is my name. I'm privileged to have worked with the research setting.
I think you went on mute again.
Yeah, we have lost you, Paul. Are you still there? Okay, while Paul is connecting, maybe we can have another question. I don't see any hand raised now.
I saw Dr. Kingston Mashingaidze from ARC. Maybe you can also share something. What do you do in South Africa?
Yes, please. I saw his comment. Dr. Mashingaidze. Dr. Mashingaidze, if you are there, unmute.
Unfortunately, I'm driving from Victoria to Potchefstroom, so it's quite noisy.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you.
I hope to listen to Rufaro, but now I'm driving.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks and well done. Good job.
Thank you, my brother.
Okay. Paul, I think he's struggling with his network.
I think I should be. I had a slight glitch in the network, but what I wished to submit was that today we have, doctor mentioned something to do with the seed companies, that at times they're having issues with maybe trying to synchronize planting and all that. But what I wish to submit on that was at times the breeding institutions really do not need to spoon feed the seed companies. I think we need the seed companies really to revolutionize. When we look at the West companies like Monsanto, they're employing professionals. You could talk of the breeders, you could talk of seed scientists. Really need our seed companies to revolutionize, because if they cannot do the basics of trying to maybe synchronize planting and all that, then what is the difference between them and the farmer? And then also something on fertilizer use. Of recent, there is really a move towards precision agriculture. So much as we are recommending the farmers and telling them use this amount, we also need to find out. I mean, how do we make things like soil testing cheap and accessible, such that that can be a basis for fertility management? Because at the end of it all, we need to manage our soils in a sustainable manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that has a comment. I'll hand over you to Dean. I'm done with my session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Madakadze and Dr. Madakadze, Professor Tongona. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Collector. Handing over to the president of the association so that we can conclude. It was just, I mean, it's a long 1.5 hours now. So, Dr. Nogorokosho, are you there?
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. Thank you very much, everyone. I just want to spend a few minutes to do a few things that are required. Number one, I just want to remind people that our association is purely voluntary. We have a website that is running. Somebody can share that website as we move forward, I think Dean or Mrs. Nyakanda. The organization has reached 5 years now since the inception. The membership is more than 100, and we'll get more as we go forward. So that is about our association. And I just also want to let everybody know that even though it's a Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association, we are open to receiving membership from non-Zimbabweans as guest members, so that you can also learn what we do. We can share experiences if you also have an organization in your country similar to us, and we can learn from each other. So we are open to foreigners worldwide. Right now, I just want to tell you that we have a few more upcoming events as exciting as this one. We are looking towards a webinar on nutritious crops, breeding for nutritious crops, seed systems. I think that as Zimbabweans, we have capacity to deliver a high-powered seminar on that. We have so many examples of nutritious crops. We have good breeders working on maize for vitamin A, for quality protein, and for zinc. We have sweet potato breeders working on orange sweet potato. We have breeders working on beans, and we have some experiences with other nutritious crops. So we are organizing that. Hopefully, it will happen sometime in August. The Midland State University, they are also in discussion with us. We hope to organize one last seminar with them sometime this year. The topic will be decided. As an organization, I also want to let the people know that we have a high-powered representation at the upcoming Association of African Plant Breeders Association Conference that will happen in October in Rwanda. We have submitted abstracts from 5 people, 1 from industry, 1 from academia, and 2 or 3 from students. So they've submitted their abstracts, and hopefully they will be accepted and they will represent the association at that particular meeting. And then pending COVID, we hope to have an outside an out-of-door event, similar to what we did last year with the Pumputa. So we are working on that, and it will materialize depending on the COVID situation. So we are hoping that with all these events that we are doing, we are keeping the association alive. And we are also excited that a lot of people are sharing information on the WhatsApp platform. We have a very lively secretary who is tweeting all these events that we are doing. So we keep to maintain our profile high as Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association. Right now, just I think on the WhatsApp platform, we are also selling, as fundraising, we are also selling a few PR materials. We have some very nice, beautiful looking mugs, some golf t-shirts, and we hope that you can get in touch with us as we try to raise some little funds during this difficult time. So please get in touch with the organizers of the Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association for that. So please promote the organization. If you can order or buy 1 or 2 t-shirts, they are not very pricey, especially for the people in the diaspora. You can order and then you can sell also at a profit if you want. And then last but not least, I just want to thank quite a number of people who made this event very, very successful. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Kuchwayo of DRNSS for blessing the event. It went quite well. We had almost 50 participants that joined and that learned from Dr. Madakadze. So thank you very much, Dr. Kuchwayo, for blessing the event. Dr. Madakadze, thank you so much. I know you could talk and talk, you could go on and on. It was so exciting. We were all glued onto our screens, listening to you talk and looking at your smile and digesting everything you said. So thank you very much on behalf of the Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association. You can also thank your bosses at AGRA, even though they were not there, but they gave you the opportunity. So we really appreciate that. To the participants, you spent an hour and a half with us. This is really appreciated. It shows the excitement of the seminars and webinars that we are organizing. So thank you very much for being with us. Just remember that if you are not a member of the association, it's a free for all membership. You can join, get in touch with the organizers. I would also like to thank my team at the Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association, Mrs. Nyakanda, Tendai Howe, Dean Mungani, Caspar Kamtanto, Tatenda Mayaya, Roger Van Royen, Mrs. Chukutuma, and everyone else who organized this event. It was really a nice event. And last but not least, I would like to thank Dr. Chiwasa for conducting the discussion and question session professionally. It was really well done. We learned quite a lot, and thank you, Dr. Chiwasa. And finally, I would like to officially close the event. Thank everyone, and have a good day. There's a recording of the event on, it will be there on the Zimbabwe Plant Breeders Association website in a couple of days. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely day, and fully appreciate it. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.